Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of our Design for Non-Designers, Easy Tips for Designing Digital Materials for Any Learning Environment. I'm Sarah Schroeder and I'm your facilitator for this course. And today we are going to be looking at some design basics to keep in mind when we are creating and delivering remote and digital learning. And then also evaluate some sample slides and classroom layouts to determine how we could improve them using some really basic design principles. So, how do we make good design happen, and what are some simple steps that we can use to improve our design and learning? The first one I want to look at is the picture superiority effect. So, we've all heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in reality, that is incredibly true. Our brains process images tens of thousands of times faster than they process written language. So when we use a word, it takes our brains a lot longer to figure out the meaning than when we use a picture, and our brain tends to instantly translate that picture into a meaning in our heads. So a complex idea can be conveyed with a single still image, making it possible to absorb a large amount of data quickly. So this example on the left, showing memory retention after 3 days, is not only an important statistic for us to know when we're considering the picture superiority effect, or the fact that pictures can sometimes be superior to words, but it also demonstrates the theory itself by showing us in a very simple way how much more effective text plus a picture is versus text or audio only. So this example we've seen quite a bit, a coverage map from a wireless service like Verizon. So when we look at this map, just by glancing at it, we can see that Verizon's coverage is much more extensive than the other services' coverages. So a graphic like this can tell a story and send a message much more quickly than a paragraph if we were to read the same data in a list. So, another way that we can design in a way that helps our learners pay attention to the content and the skills we really want them paying attention to and increase their memory is by using CARP, or contrast, alignment, repetition, and proximity in our design. So, when we're thinking about contrast, which one of these two is easier to read? The content on the left or the content on the right? I think we would all agree the content on the right is easier to read. Now, there's multiple types of contrast happening here. The most obvious one is the color contrast. But we also, on the one on the right, see contrast in alignment. We see contrast in font size. And so those different types of contrast all help draw our attention to what's most important. And you'll notice the content from the left to the right is exactly the same. But by keeping it simple and keeping the contrast meaningful, we have drawn our learners' attention to what is most important. Alignment is another concept that is incredibly easy to apply and helps draw our learners' attention to what is most important and help them process that information more quickly and remember it better. So when we look at this example slide, and we all love a good barrel of monkeys and a pineapple wearing sunglasses, but it's very difficult to see what I'm really supposed to be focusing on. Now, when we look at a slide with the exact same content, we can quickly see which one is easier. So when we're thinking about alignment, we are thinking about having things that go together, chunked together, and lined up together. So you'll see same content, a little less busy, a lot less busy, but also our border is aligned on the bottom, so it's out of the way in a non-distracting way. And our bullets are all aligned on the left, and our brain naturally reads from left to right in the United States. Readers of English read from left to right. And so when we have all of our alignment on the left, that is natural and easy for our brain to flow from left to right and see the beginnings of ideas and the ends of them and look at what's most important. We also see that heading lines up with the bullets, showing proximity and showing that the heading goes with those bullets, which over here is a little bit hard to see. So when we consider repetition, we really have to think about the benefit. So the benefit of repetition is that it can provide unity in your ideas, consistency for your learners, cohesiveness, really quick triggers, reinforcement, and memory. So when we look at an example like this, we see several different forms of repetition. We see repetition in the icons on the left. So those little quick icons, which were just added in by using the insert icon add-on for slides. We see that the repetition of the color really helps draw our attention to it. We see the repetition of the icons for the same task. And if we did this week to week to week, our learners would get very quick at realizing, oh, I've got 2 videos to watch, 1 book to read, something to record, and then they're all due on Friday. By making the image really clear and simple and repeating the main idea of this lesson, which is this particular book, Tuck Everlasting, and not making it just a random clip art or an image that doesn't reinforce the idea or repeat the main idea, we have improved memory of our learners and helped draw their attention to what's important. You'll also see in these little words here, watch, read, record. So we also see some repetition in the parallel structure of starting with the verb and the task that they need to do and moving down the list in the exact same structure. So we have repetition of structure, we have repetition of icons, repetition of color, and repetition of ideas. Proximity, which is that last P in CARP, talks about having our text and images or ideas chunked together so our brain sees them as one piece. So while some may like the water cycle picture on the bottom better because the image is simpler and cleaner, on the top, we see that integrated presentation where our brain can process the images along with the text and it actually improves memory. So while we may like the simpler image on the bottom, our memory is actually improved with the chunking and the proximity and integrated presentation on the top, where we see the image that illustrates the concept right next to the text and the definition. So another way we can do all of this and use simple design practices to increase memory in our students is by the way we format our text and how we can chunk it. So we can chunk ideas in our text by using bullets, by using headers, and by headers I mean the styles in Word or the styles in Google Docs, or being really consistent using a slide template in our Google Slides or our PowerPoint, a slide master, and keeping all of our headers the same and really making them stand out, and chunking a header or a main idea with the bullets that it goes along with. We can also see this in our assignment or document organization and our overall course organization. So by chunking things into little small doable tasks or little small doable pieces of information, we are going to improve usability and we are going to improve cognitive load and memory for our learners. So we're increasing that memory, that germane load in our students, and we are helping to manage any kind of extraneous load that might happen with distracting pieces. So for example, if we look at this information, it's exactly the same from the left to the right. One uses a paragraph and all complete sentences. The other uses 2 sentences with bullets. Same exact content, same exact concepts, but one is much easier for our brain to see the main ideas and much easier for our brain to process. So think about this when you're writing assignment descriptions. Paragraph long assignment descriptions in particular, or task descriptions, can be very, very difficult for our students to process, for them to see the steps, to see what's most important, and to kind of use that description as a checklist as they're completing their assignment. Versus if we don't use complete sentences and rely on bullets and chunking, it makes it much easier for our learners to process and stay on track and use it as a checklist. Here's another example from a sample syllabus, and this is all in paragraphs. When we look at it with headings, we can glance at this and instantly see we have a course description, instructional methods, and communication. So while these are still paragraphs, it's much, much easier for us as a learner to see the main ideas right away. We can also think about our classroom organization. So one way you can organize your classroom in Google Classroom or in any learning management system like Canvas or Schoology that you might have access to is considering using headings, considering chunking different assignment pieces together, using things like classwork topics to organize your content in Google Classroom, or using module structures in Canvas that chunk key pieces together. And also, when we're writing an assignment, again, to use lists, bulleted, ordered, or unordered lists. And by doing something even like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, our learners can walk right through it. And then they see at the bottom exactly what it is they have to go through in order in terms of the content. So while Google Classroom doesn't give you a lot of choices in formatting, you can still chunk things together for your learners so they know that this is all part of one task with one set of learning outcomes and one deliverable to show their learning. So what I want to leave you with as we talk about these design basics is the same thing we left you with in our last video. That design matters, but design is not about decoration or ornamentation. It's not about making it pretty. It's about making communication as easy and clear for the viewer as possible. Remember that you are not the end user of your design. So anything we can do to help those end users make our content more usable, and those end users who are our students, who are their caregivers or their parents or their coaches or their tutors or their aides, those are our end users who need to be able to use our design. So when we design with them in mind and from their point of view, we will create better design that improves memory